loves to sit down and listen to someone tell a great story. Hands up. Okay, so basically everyone in the room. Great, we're off to a great start. I have loved hearing and sharing stories for as long as I can remember. From the time that I was a kid, sharing stories around the campfire, to the time that I was a student here at U of T, reading books like The Handmaid's Tale and Pride and Prejudice. And even now, as an adult, as I dive deep into my favorite TV shows and into the drama of these highbrow shows like The Real Housewives of New Jersey. Don't pretend like you don't watch it. But these stories have really pushed me to use my imagination and open my mind up to new ideas. And like so many of you, I've indulged in so many stories throughout the years. I've read books written by heroin addicts and about growing up in a cult. I've watched movies about prisoners of war in Nazi Germany. And I've tuned in weekly to shows like Grey's Anatomy that take me behind the scenes of a very chaotic and a very catastrophic and quite unrealistic hospital in Seattle. And all of these stories, they gave me an inside look into worlds that I knew nothing about. They allowed me to stand in somebody else's shoes, if only for an hour-long episode. But it wasn't until recently that I really started to understand the power of storytelling, and more specifically, the power of personal storytelling. How our stories not only give rise to new ideas, but how they also empower and enable human connection as well. See, I love storytelling so much that when I turned 30, I left my PR career behind to start a blog. Yes, this is a real job, I assure you. I became a full-time blogger, and it did take a lot of convincing on my parents' end that this is a good idea. But the idea kind of came to me. I was living overseas in London, and I was doing PR for a travel company. And my days were spent putting campaigns together for these big-name bloggers and YouTubers. I was taking them on trips around the world, and I was helping them create content around our brand. And the whole time that I was doing this, I just kept thinking, I want to be on that side. I want to be the person who is telling the stories, who is taking the photos, and who is engaging with an audience and captivating them. And so, in a moment of, oh my God, I just turned 30, what the hell am I doing with my life? And you will all have that moment when you turn 30. I quit my job, I moved back to Toronto, and I started what is now known as This Renegade Love. And I'll be honest with you, at the beginning I really had no idea what I was doing. I sure as hell was not making money from it, that was for sure, but I was driven by passion and by creativity. And I knew that there were endless stories to tell, and these were stories that I wanted to tell. And so that's what I did. I would tell the stories of entrepreneurs, people who had left their 9-to-5 to start their own businesses or travel the world. And these were the people that really inspired me. These are the people that I called the renegades. And I slowly started to build a community, not just on my blog, but on Instagram as well, of people who were inspired by the same renegades that I was interested in. And as this community grew bigger and bigger, I noticed that increasingly, people became interested in my life as well. They wanted to know what products I was using. They wanted to know what restaurants I was going to. They wanted to know more about the person behind this renegade love. And so slowly but surely, I started letting people into my world. I would share the products that I was interested in. I would take them out and Snapchat myself at brunch with my friends. Although I was never one of those people that stood on a chair to take photos of their food. I will just say that right now. But I would let them into my home life, showing them snippets of my life with my husband and my dog, much to my husband's chagrin, of course. And I would take them on holiday with me, show them all the places that I was traveling to. And this just started kind of happening naturally for me. It would just be another part of my day to wake up and Insta story and tell people what I was doing. And I did this in a really open and authentic way that was really important to me in order to gain trust with the community that I was talking to. And soon enough, I wasn't just a blogger, but I had become a quote-unquote influencer as well. Brands were starting to reach out to me and asking me to create content around their products and their services. And by the time I hit the 3rd year of blogging, I was actually making more money than I had in my corporate full-time job. And this was very surreal to me. It's still surreal to me. I mean, it's surreal to me that I am standing on this stage right now. And it was surreal to me that people were showing up daily to hear what I had to say. And it was even more surreal to me that I could make a living out of sharing my stories and doing so in my own voice. I was living the dream. This is what I had set out to do. But there was one story that wasn't so easy for me to talk about. It was one that was just a little too personal, a little too vulnerable. But it was also the one that showed me just how powerful personal storytelling could be. In June of 2017, I was working out at the gym in my condo building when I felt a sharp pain in my abdomen. And within 5 minutes, that pain was so intense that I could barely stand. And so by the time I made it up to the suite in my condo building, I collapsed on the floor, covered in sweat, crying, not knowing what to do, and vomiting from the pain. And this lasted for an hour and a half before it eventually subsided and completely went away. And I just lay there wondering what the hell had just happened to me. And then later that day, I got my period. The pain didn't come back, and it didn't come back the next month or the month after, so I kind of pushed it out of my head. I just chalked it up to a bad experience. And then when I went in to see my doctor for my yearly checkup, I told him about it, and he told me that if the pain hadn't come back, that it was probably just bad cramps, and it was unlikely to be anything serious. But the same episode did happen again, only this time several months later. It lasted even longer, and the pain was even more intense and excruciating and unbearable, traveling from my abdomen to my lower back, to the point where I almost passed out. And it was then that I knew that something wasn't right. And so I pushed back on my doctor. He set up some tests to get done and set me up an appointment with a specialist. And when I went in to see the specialist to get the results, she informed me that the ultrasound showed that on both occasions I had cysts that had grown in my ovaries, had become inflamed, and they hemorrhaged and ruptured, and that was what had caused me so much pain. I had like a million questions for her. How did this happen? What caused this? Would this happen again? And what can I do to prevent this from happening again? And she told me that, yes, it's very likely that this could happen again, and there's no way to tell when or if. Unfortunately, there are no treatments for this. There's no pills you can take to prevent it from happening again. And that maybe I can take Advil to help with the inflammation before my period so that it kind of eases the inflammation within my body. And she obviously saw the amount of distress on my face, because I don't know if she was trying to ease my mind or something, but she told me, oh no, don't worry, this is normal. 1 in 10 women will deal with problematic cysts on their ovaries in their lifetime. Now, this did not ease my mind whatsoever. In fact, it really set something off in my head. And I couldn't help but wonder, if this was so normal, if 1 in 10 women, that's 100,000 out of every million women, were dealing with this, then why was nobody talking about it? Why was this the first time that I had even heard of this? And deep down, I knew the answer. I knew that it was because, as women, we have been taught that our bodies and talking about our bodies is shameful, that it is not something to be discussed in public, that our periods are meant to be hidden, and that is why things like pads and tampons are meant to be discreet and packaged as so. That the pain that we feel monthly, hey, that's just part of being a woman. That this part of our story was not meant to be shared. But this is also the reason why I knew that I needed to. And so when I decided to talk about this experience and write a blog post about it, I really didn't know what the reaction was going to be, because this isn't what I normally spoke about on my blog. I mostly talked about entrepreneurship and building your brand and like how to live your best life and all that inspirational stuff. So this was a little bit off-brand for me. But I wrote it honestly and authentically, very openly, as I did with everything else that I wrote. I titled it, I Am Woman, This Is My Body, Now Hear Me Roar. And I have my very talented photographer friend, Bettina Bogar, meet me at the Four Seasons and take a nude photo of me that I could share along with it. Because if I was going to be vulnerable, I was going all out. And so I set the post live, and I shared it on my Instagram. And within the first couple minutes, some comments trickled in, which I assumed they would because, hello, I was naked on the internet. And then the floodgates just completely opened up. Women were leaving comments that were paragraphs long, finally opening up after years of suffering and silence. There were women who were tagging their friends who had confided in them, saying, hey, this sounds exactly what you've gone through. And there were women who were sending me private messages detailing their years of pain that they've been dealing with since they were teenagers, and the doctors who brushed them off and would not listen. The doctors who told them that the only solutions for the pain that they felt every month was either go back on the pill or to get pregnant. And as this was happening, as all of these stories were coming in and women were sharing them, not only on my page, but feeling comfortable now to open up and share with their own family and friends and on their own social media accounts, as all of this was coming in, that's when I realized that I wasn't in the business of blogging. And I wasn't in the business of influencer marketing. I was in the business of storytelling. And my currency was human connection. Now, it's been a year since I've shared that post. And since then, I've still gotten messages from women saying, thank you so much for reaching out. It's really provoked me to go speak to my doctor, to not take no for an answer, and to really push them to do more about this. And the other thing that women have reached out about is saying, how are you so open with talking about this stuff? How are you just sharing yourself open for the world, totally exposed, and for people to judge you and all these kinds of things? And I thought, that's a really valid question. Because in this online world that we're all part of, I work in it, but everyone here has social media apps. In this online world, it's very rare for there to be complete open honesty, sharing our most authentic selves. Everything we put out there is filtered. All of our captions are edited. We curate our social feeds as though they're an art gallery. We only show the best, and we shy away from showing anything that isn't considered Instagram-worthy. And I've thought about this quite a bit, and I've had this conversation with friends and family about why we don't share our honest selves. And I've really come down to two conclusions about why we don't share our personal stories, especially in the online space. And the first reason why we don't is because we're scared. We're scared of being vulnerable, and we're scared of exposing ourselves, and we're scared of the judgment and the criticism that could come along from family and friends and whoever reads it. And the second reason why we don't share our stories, the second reason why we don't share our stories is because we feel like we have nothing of value to say. We ask ourselves, why would anyone be interested in what I have to say? We tell ourselves that our lives are too ordinary, too mundane, not adventurous enough, and far too common. But here is what I have learned to be true. Those vulnerabilities and those commonalities, those are what make your stories worthy of sharing. When we open ourselves up and share our personal experiences, whether it's the struggle of being a student, or whether it's going through a divorce and the pain that you feel, when we open ourselves up, we make other people feel less alone. That story that I shared about my sis, that didn't blow up and get shared across the internet because it was some mind-blowing statistic. That was shared because there was a group of women who saw themselves in me. And when you really think about it, an idea is just an idea, and a fact is just a fact, until it is given life by a human element. And only then can that idea or that fact actually begin to take shape, to grow, to spread, and to impact change. And it's the same reason why we love shows like Oprah and Ellen. that invite us in to hear these stories, these heartwarming stories of people just like you and I. And it's the reason why YouTubers have become the new form of celebrity, and why they can amass millions of subscribers just by sharing their daily stories. Our personal stories, both big and small, hold an infinite amount of power. And when we combine them with our authentic voices, it's the most valuable thing that we own. And so what I encourage you to do, what I encourage everyone in this room to do, is to overcome that fear of vulnerability. Open up and share your ideas and give them life through your personal experiences. Because there is no story that is too common or too ordinary, that it won't have an impact on at least one person. And you never know, for that one person, your vulnerable and seemingly insignificant story could very well be life-changing. Thank you.